Hi everyone, my name is Joseph Bourgeois. I'm a senior at Fitchburg State and I'm a double major in economics and business administration. And my paper was called Informality, Inequality, and Profit Rates. Just to go through the layout of this presentation, first we're going to talk about the background of the paper, the motivation for the paper, what is informality and why does it matter, the data and methods that we used to reach our conclusion for the paper, the results that we obtained, and the discussion about the results and what they mean and how it pertains to the paper, and then the conclusion on what we came up with. A little bit of background. This paper, it was a joint work with Professor Elveren from Fitchburg State. He's in the economics department, as well as Professor Ceyhun Elgin from Boğaziçi University in Turkey. And this was a faculty-student research collaboration, so we all worked together, and it was definitely a great experience to work with two professors, especially two that have a lot of experience in research in the field. And as you can see, this paper was published in the Applied Economics Letters last year on July 20th, 2020. So now we're going to go through the motivation of the paper. What is informality and why does it matter? Informality is all economic activities that are officially calculated into national income but not registered with the government. So in this case, we're talking about pretty much more of like government overview, so stuff like taxes, stuff like government regulation. Pretty much all of those things are not registered in the informal sector. They're more overlooked, and that's why informal sector is able to thrive without having to pay taxes. So a few other terms that are known in economics is shadow economy, hidden economy, and so on and so forth. It does have many different names, but pretty much all the main ideas is that it's just not the traditional economy. It's more of like an informal part, which is where the name comes from. Now, why does the informal sector matter? Because of the size of the informal sector and its share of GDP across countries, it does have a large share, and we're going to be looking at that and how major the informal sector plays, especially in these more developing countries in the world. Informal employment accounts for about 70% of employment in the typical emerging market economy. So if you think about it, 70 out of 100 people in these emerging economies are going to be working in the informal sector. So without the informal sector and without its being around, these people would all be unemployed. So it's definitely important in giving, especially these people in these developing countries, a chance at employment. Informal output has been estimated at some 35% of GDP in developing nations. So that's a large share of the GDP if you think about it. I mean, 35% is definitely a good chunk of it. And in advanced countries, that ratio is still even around 15% in some, which is still, I mean, if you're looking at it as a share of GDP, 15% might not seem like a lot, but it can be, billions and billions of dollars if you take a look at it. So what is informality and why does it matter? So there's two contrasting effects to informality on income inequality. So the first effect is that the informal sector employs low-skilled or unskilled workers, which provides kind of like a last resort opportunity. So if you think about it, if these people, other than having work in the informal sector, they would just be unemployed. So what this allows for is for these people that want to work, they have the ability to work, which helps to reduce the income inequality, because if they weren't working, they'd have, zero income. So higher informality leads to lower income inequality due to this effect. But on the other hand, in an expanding informal sector, what it does is it takes away from tax revenue. Because like we said before in the previous explanation is, this is not in the view of government, so there's no taxes that are coming out of the informal sector. And normally what taxes are used to do is used to redistribute income progressively. And that's why, that's where there's kind of an adverse effect, because, on one hand, you have it lowering income inequality, but on the other hand, you have it raising income inequality by taking away from this tax revenue. So our goal in this is we want to say which effect is more dominant. We want to look at which of these is it more of a positive thing to have the informal economy in the economy, or is it more of a negative effect? We want to see how it's going to affect everything. And one of our key contributions is we want to look at how profit rate affects this relationship and what it does to it. So I mean, we're gonna just run through this. I know the equation does look very intimidating at first, but pretty much this is the model that we used. So we look at estimated household income inequality. We also use the size of the informal sector, which can be seen with the IS notation right there. We take a look at the general rate of profit in the economy, which is right next to the B2 there, that profit symbol right next to the B2. We also look at the GDP capital. GDP per capita is a good economic measure to use, especially in this case. And we also look at unemployment because that's also very important when we're looking at it. And what we use is we used a large data set of 86 countries from 1960 to 2016. These can range from developing to developed countries, and pretty much all in the mix. And this right here is these are the statistics we ended up coming up with when we looked at this. And as you can see here, between we used two different forms of income inequality to take a look at that, just to kind of have more of a robust model of data. Because pretty much the main goal is we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to catch every single point, especially with a large data set like this. And then if you look over here, we use, alternative profit measures as well. And then you can see some of the similar notation that we used in our model on the previous slides. So our conclusions that we came up with. So the size of the informal sector is positively correlated with income inequality. Now this result has been something that has been seen in other papers as well, because this is an up-and-coming topic in economics, so it's definitely being talked about more, and we have seen this conclusion in other papers as well. There's a significant positive association between the profit rates and income inequality. That's also true as well, also has been seen. This is kind of like the part of the main idea that we wanted to look at, though, because we wanted to analyze profit rates as well, and we wanted to see how the profit rates kind of come in the mix as well. So that was a little bit of our contribution with this paper. IS GDP suggests that informal sector size and income inequality are positive correlated for countries below a threshold of GDP. So pretty much the main idea is when they're below a certain threshold, there is a positive correlation, but once countries are above a certain GDP threshold, it eventually that positive correlations becomes less positive and even negative at some times. And then the key findings of the study is the increasing effect of profit rates on income inequality decreases as the size of informal sector increases. So pretty much with that being said, what we're looking at is as the size of the informal sector increases, the effective profit rate on income inequality decreases. So this finding suggests that the presence of informal sector pushes up lower income. And as we talked about before, I mean, this is an important thing to look at, because if these people, these unskilled and these low-skilled workers didn't have employment in the informal sector, they wouldn't have any employment at all. So it's nice that they have somewhere to go in the informal sector to work and provide their labor, especially to contribute to GDP. So our conclusion, so is informality good or bad? I mean, from what we concluded here, it looks like it is good, because like I said, it provides the low-skilled and unskilled workers with the ability to work, and even with the loss in tax revenue, that ability to work helps out more than the progressive income redistribution. So if you look at it, having an informal sector, even though it might not look good in some areas, is actually positive, especially for developing nations. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.